But when it left, were any of you thinking, what was that about? You know, jack-o'-lanterns, trick-or-treating, ghosts, and witches, these are all things that remind us of Halloween. But why? And has it always been this way? Well, in this video, Megan, Haley, Kelsey, Logan, and I will be answering these questions and more. Now let's dive in before I finish off on my Halloween candy.
You know, Molly, candy might be a great place to start.
Okay.
I forgot the one line.
Every year, it is estimated that 41 million people go trick-or-treating in the United States, and the tradition of going door-to-door for getting treats can be placed all the way back to the Middle Ages. However, they didn't exactly have M&Ms and Kit Kats laying around in that day. Desserts called soul cakes were given out in the 1400s in Europe to commemorate the dead. Soulers, the earliest kinds of trick-or-treaters, would go door to door to perform short plays in return for soul cakes, which kind of tasted like gingerbread. Since cocoa wasn't introduced to Europe until the 1550s, chocolate didn't play much part in the Halloween treats. Soul cakes often featured other sweet things such as raisins, cranberries, and dates.
So that explains the treats, but what about the tricks?
Well, playing tricks on people didn't enter into the equation until the 1500s, when young men in Scotland would dress up as a white horse and lead children around town reciting poems and songs that talked about pagan spirits. Paganism is a pre-Christian religion that still exists in Northern Europe today and deals greatly with nature and the supernatural. If a household refused to give the group food, then the children would make mischief later that night. This is one reason why many of the costumes we wear on Halloween are scary even to this day. People all across Scotland, Ireland, and Wales would dress up as pagan spirits of the dead and include things like banshees, ghosts, and witches. The scarier you were, the less likely someone was to ignore your cake-driven threats.
Okay, speaking of pagans, Samhain, a Celtic pagan holiday marking the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, starts on Halloween night and ends on November 1st. For thousands of years, people have been able to mark this time of year as the start of winter. As slowly but surely, the air becomes crisp and cool, animals start to hibernate, and the leaves begin to change into those beautiful reds, oranges, and golds.
You know, I've always wondered how the leaves change colors. It seems to happen before my eyes every year.
Well, it's simple. Trees respond to the decreasing amount of sunlight in fall by producing less and less chlorophyll. Eventually, a tree stops producing chlorophyll entirely. When this happens, carotenoid, a usually hidden pigment in the leaves, can finally show through. And it's not just leaves that have carotenoid, but things like corn, carrots, and even pumpkins too.
Well, speaking of pumpkins, Kelsey, didn't you want to tell us a little something about America's favorite gourd?
Sure thing. Carving your jack-o'-lantern is something that millions of Americans look forward to every year. And pumpkins are in such high demand that the majority of the 1.5 billion pounds of pumpkins growing in America each year are sold in the month of October. The practice of decorating jack-o'-lanterns, whose names comes from an Irish folktale about a man named Stingy Jack, originated in Ireland, where large turnips and potatoes served as an early canvas. Irish immigrants brought the tradition to America, home of the pumpkin, and it became an integral part of Halloween festivities. So if you can't find any pumpkins to carve next year, consider using a turnip or a potato to light up your front porch.
I don't know. I feel like a potato jack-o'-lantern sounds like Oasis and pretty good french fries to me. But hey, now that we're on the subject, why don't we start planning for Halloween next year? It sounds like french fries might actually be a pretty good idea for a costume.
But french fries aren't scary, unless you're diabetic.
Yeah, I think you need to head back to the drawing board. You need a classic costume.
Well, if we're talking about classic, then how about a witch? Since the 1870s, the witch has been the go-to costume for women and girls all across Europe and the United States. Because store-bought costumes were unavailable until about 1930, people made their own, and witches, ghosts, and pirates have usually been the easiest and the most popular to make. When Halloween became more of a secular holiday towards 1920, people began to include characters in their costume planning, like Mickey Mouse and Superman. Masks were incredibly popular as well, and in the 1940s they were worn by most trick-or-treaters, as they were some of the first cheap and mass produced costumes for sale in the United States. In the late 70s and 80s, though, Halloween was changed forever by the introduction of contemporary horror movie culture. Today, superheroes are the most popular costume choice, and humorous costumes are trailing close behind.
Picking out our costumes for next year sounds like fun. It never hurts to plan things 365 days in advance.
Guys, hold on. I think this video thing has gone to our heads. I mean, it's not even Christmas yet. Aren't you excited for Santa?
Logan, you say that like you think he's real.
Isn't he?
Wait, Molly, are you saying you don't believe in Santa? Because he's totally real.
Yeah, he comes to the mall like every year.
What are you guys talking about?
Molly, you don't believe in Santa. What the heck's wrong with you?
Well, anyway, thanks for watching our History of Halloween video. Have a spooky day.
No.